Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you're having a beautiful day where you are. Hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Getting ready here to start a brand new week. Thought I'd bring you some news today. Let you know what's going on out in the world. We've got a lot of things to bring to you today, so I'm going to jump right on into it. The first one we have here is off of BizPack Review. And I'm waiting for the little hamster to get it up here for me. Here we go. Podesta leak. Obama forces flooded the caucuses eligible voters in 2008. Makes you wonder if that's what we got going to go on this time around. It says the two attorneys with close ties to the Clinton family believe that then Senator Barack Obama's 2008 campaign flooded the caucuses with ineligible voters, according to leaked emails. Emails hacked from Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, John Podesta, cites two attorneys and old friends of the Clintons, James Lyons and Michael Driver, tasked with caucus protection, election protection, and to raise hard dollars for the 2016 Colorado caucus. Apparently, Lyons and Driver didn't want a repeat of 2008 when they believe the Obama campaign flooded the caucuses with ineligible voters, according to the email chain released by WikiLeaks. It's unclear if they are only talking about the Colorado caucuses or those in other states. High importance, Podesta wrote to campaign staffers in May of 2015 email. I met with Jim and Mike in Denver, Podesta wrote. They are both old friends of the Clintons and have lots of experience. Mike hosted our Boulder Road Show event. They are reliving the '08 caucuses where they believe the Obama forces flooded the caucuses with ineligible voters. They want to organize lawyers for caucus protection, election protection, and to raise hard dollars. They are not just Colorado focused and have good contacts in the region. Lyons is a partner at Lewis Roca Rothgerber Christie and worked for former President Bill Clinton during the 1990s as counsel and a special advisor on initiatives in Northern Ireland. Driver is a longtime friend of the Clinton family and helped raise money for Hillary's Senate and 2008 presidential bid. Mike is likely to talk to WJC about this in the near future. Marlon and Brianne, can you respond to the org chart request and give them some points of contact? Mark, can you reach out to them on the lawyer election protection issues? Podesta wrote. Clinton lost the 2016 Colorado caucus to primary opponent Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders by a nearly 20 percentage point margin. The next article I have for you is off americasfreedomfighters.com. And this says, whoa, Michelle's perverted past after she trashes Trump. It says conservative radio host Rush Limbaugh slammed Michelle Obama for blasting Donald Trump for his locker room talk and pointed out that the rappers and other hip-hop stars that the Obamas have had to the White House are making millions of dollars degrading women, and what these scumbags say in their songs is 1,000 times more offensive than anything Donald Trump said. It's not locker room talk. I don't know men who talk that way. Decent men do not talk that way. What Trump was talking about was sexual assault, Michelle said while campaigning for crooked Hillary in New Hampshire. Rush said, men brag, and she is telling people that she doesn't know men who brag. You know, people that have been to the White House. How about some of the rappers that talk about their bitches and their hoes have performed such lyrics in the White House? But she doesn't know men who talk and sing about sexual assault. It's all over hip-hop lyrics and has been for a while. Rush added that many of the lyrics in these songs also condone violence on law enforcement. So, is assault on the police a feature of some hip hop lyrics and it's been performed at the White House, but she doesn't know men who talk that way. She doesn't know decent guys who talk that way, he said. Rush is on spot. Obama has some of the biggest scumbags in the world come to the White House. Then Rush brought up Obama's pastor, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, another major scumbag. Yes, I guess Michelle Obama wasn't there when the Reverend Wright was talking about Bill Clinton, Rush said. You remember what Reverend Wright said about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. And Bill and Monica Lewinsky was riding dirty. Yeah, chickens have come home to roost, baby. Bill was riding dirty, and the congregation went nuts. Wilmot Ravizio at Conservative Tribune has more. And while Rush didn't mention her, let's not forget Michelle's BFF, Beyonce. Here are some of her lyrical exploits. Warning, graphic language. Can you lick my Skittles? It's the sweetest in the middle. Pink is the flavor. Solve the riddle. I can't wait till I get home so you can turn that cherry out. I want you to turn that cherry out. Turn that cherry out. First, both of my legs go back on your head, and whatever you want, yeah, baby, I'm bad. Now my mascara running, red lipstick smudged, yeah, he's so, and there's a blank. He wants to blank. He popped all my buttons and he ripped my blouse. Hey, Monica Lewinsky, all on my gown. Oh, daddy, daddy, he didn't bring the towel. Oh, baby, baby, we better slow it down. Over there, I swear I saw them cameras flash, handprints and footprints on my glass, handprints and my good grips on my fill in the blank. Give me that daddy's long stroke. The First Lady, meanwhile, calls her a role model. Yeah, this is pretty insane. The double standards are ridiculous. I wonder what Michelle has to say about Brock parading around with an erection in front of females on the airplane back in 2007. Again, what scumbags. Unbelievable. Can't make this stuff up. ConservativeTribune.com is the next one. Fraud. Ex-employee trashes Trump on CNN, but she didn't know we had this letter. Former Trump Organization executive Barbara Reese is a two-faced fraud, though she appeared on CNN earlier this week to blast Trump as a blatant sexist and claims that she believed the allegation of sexual assault that had been made. She only a short while back said she felt entirely different about the billionaire candidate. Take, for instance, what she wrote in a letter sent to him in July of 2013, the same month that her personal memoir hit bookshelves nationwide. I credit you with giving me a very big break and treating me, in contrast to your reported demeanor, in a very non-sexist way, she wrote in the letter pictured below. And there is a copy of this letter in this, if you want to take a look at that for yourself. Moreover, according to the UK Daily Mail, the book itself contained praise for Trump, including a line about him being the least sexiest boss for whom she had ever worked. Why then is she suddenly turned into one of the man's fiercest critics, apparently out of spite? Former Trump Organization Vice President Rona Graff has claimed that Reese, who voluntarily left the organization decades ago to pursue a career in law, essentially wanted her job back. Moreover, she obviously wanted Trump to promote her book. And there's another letter that she sent to him here. Then it says, because Trump apparently had no work for Reese, she sought revenge by publicly smearing him, despite Trump having reportedly sent letters of recommendation for her applications to law school years earlier, and despite him also having made her the first female executive to ever oversee the construction of a skyscraper. Looking at the evidence, it becomes clear that Barbara Reese is a two-faced, self-serving fraud, not to mention a very ungrateful human being. You can see her current bitterness right here, and there's another insert. It says her words clearly mean nothing, which of course is why liberal media adores her, because it too stands for absolutely nothing. So there you have that. Now, all these URLs are in the description of this video, so if you want to pull them up for yourself and take a look at some of the stuff that's in them, you're welcome to do so. Research. Here's off of bizpackreview.com. Pitchforks and torches time. Sheriff David Clark gives a bold call to arms. Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark Jr. has had enough of corrupt federal government and media and evoked imagery of a medieval mob uprising against a corrupt monarchy to vividly make his point. In his call to arms, the pro-Donald Trump sheriff said in a tweet Saturday that the time has now come to take up pitchforks and torches. And here's how it reads. It says, it's incredible that our institution of government, White House, Congress, DOJ, and big media are corrupt, and all we do is bitch. Pitchforks and torches time. And the article goes on and says the conservative lawman has continued to firmly align himself with the Republican presidential nominee in the face of controversy surrounding the candidate and has repeatedly denounced Trump's rival for the White House, Democrat Hillary Clinton. Clark also spoke on behalf of Trump at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland, Ohio. The sheriff's tweet may have been prompted in part by the candidate's tweet earlier Saturday, where he referred to a corrupt media trying to rig the election. And Trump says in the tweet, this election is being rigged by the media pushing false and unsubstantiated charges and outright lies in order to elect crooked Hillary. And the article goes on, says Clark has also taken on the controversial Black Lives Matter movement and has accused it of being the catalyst for the rise in murders of law enforcement officers. My message has been clear from day one 2 years ago. This anti-cop sentiment from this hateful ideology called Black Lives Matter has fueled this rage against the American police officer, Clark told CNN's Don Lemon in July. I predicted this 2 years ago. It says, however, as one observed, and it says, this is a tweet from Scott at retired fire captain. It says, the founders would have been shooting a long time ago. Government is out of control. And the article says, similarly, the late Senator Barry Goldwater once said, extremism of liberty is no vice. Modernation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. The next article I have for you is off of Rasmussen Reports. It's called White House Watch. No sign of allegations fallout yet. Came out last Friday. It says, at the close of a week that began with him trailing by 7 points, Donald Trump still holds a slight lead over Hillary Clinton in today's White House Watch survey, despite a flurry of news reports history of sexual harassment on his part. The latest Rasmussen Reports national telephone and online survey of likely U.S. voters show Trump with 43% support to Clinton's 41%. That's unchanged from yesterday. Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson picks up 6% of vote, and Green Party nominee Jill Stein has 2% backing. 4% like another candidate, and 5% are undecided. And now it's got something trying to play here. We'll get that shut down. There we go. It says Clinton held a 7-point lead on Monday, 45% to 38%, following the airing of an 11-year-old video showing Trump making graphic sexual remarks about women. But as voters began responding to Sunday night's debate, her lead dropped to 5 points on Tuesday and 4 points on Wednesday. Trump edged ahead yesterday. Rasmussen Reports updates its White House Watch survey daily Monday through Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern based on a 3-day rolling average of 1,500 likely U.S. voters. The latest survey is the first to include results following the release by the New York Times of new allegations of sexual harassment against Trump. The GOP nominee has denied the charges and has demanded that the newspaper apologize for what it calls a libelous article. We'll be watching to see what impact, if any, those allegations have on next week's surveys. 87% of the voters now say they've made up their minds how they will vote. And among these voters, it's Trump 48%, Clinton 46%. Among those who say they still could change their minds between now and Election Day, it's Trump 37%, Clinton 36%, Johnson 17%, and Stein 9%. The survey of 1,500 likely voters was conducted on October 11th through the 13th, 2016, by Rasmussen Reports. The margins of sampling for error is plus or minus 2.5 percentage points with a 95% level of confidence. Field work for Rasmussen Reports surveys is conducted by Pulse Opinion Research, LLC. And then it goes on here and it says Clinton jumped on the release of the video with Trump's sexual comments to say it shows her Republican rivals' demeaning attitude towards women. But Trump countered that Clinton was an enabler who allowed her husband, former President Bill Clinton, to sexually assault women for years. Voters tend to agree with Trump that Bill Clinton's behavior was worse, but not surprisingly, there's a sharp partisan difference of opinion. This survey, however, was taken prior to the latest allegations against Trump. Despite high-profile Republican defections on Trump's side, he earned 77% of the GOP vote, while Clinton has 76% Democratic support. Trump also continues to lead among voters not affiliated with either major party and to do better among Democrats than Clinton does among Republicans. GOP voters are more certain of their vote than Democrats and unaffiliateds are. While other pollsters show women abandoning Trump, our latest survey finds that two candidates running almost even, but women are more than twice as likely as men to like some other candidate or be undecided. Trump has a 6-point advantage among men. Those 40 and older still prefer Trump over Clinton. Younger voters favor Clinton, but they also remain more likely than their elders to be undecided. Women and men are equally certain of their vote at this point. Older voters are more sure of their vote than those who are younger. Most Republican voters still think top GOP leaders are hurting the party with their continuing criticism of Trump and are only slightly more convinced that those leaders want Trump to be president. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security says it has confirmed hacking attempts on election system in more than 20 states and has offered to provide states free testing of their systems before Election Day. While most voters are concerned about their state election system being hacked, they think state and local officials will do a better job protecting their vote than the feds will. Voters continue to strongly believe that the media is more interested in controversy than in the issues when it comes to the presidential race. As in previous presidential election cycles, voters expect reporters covering the political campaigns to help their favorite candidates and think it's far more likely they will help Clinton than Trump. From this survey and full demographic breakdown are available to Platinum members only. And there's all kinds of links in this that you can click to get more information on any of this should you want to do that. So that URL is in there for you. The next one we have is off of Creeping Sierra WordPress.com, and is entitled Texas. No to Wall, Islam or Die, spray painted on a San Antonio church. Source quote here says, No to Wall, Islam or Die, spray painted on San Antonio church entrance. It's off the Dallas News. Police are investigating the defacement of a San Antonio church after vandals spray painted "No to Wall" and "Islam or Die" next to the entrance. The symbol was painted under the words at Gethsemane Lutheran Church in the 600 block of Avalon Street, the San Antonio Express News reports. Eric Milletti, the pastor of Gethsemane, told the Express News that he first noticed the graffiti Monday morning. He said he wasn't sure whether the vandalism had anything to do with Donald Trump's signature presidential campaign promise to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Milletti said police were notified of the vandalism and a report was filed. He said he would ask the city to remove the paint once the police give the okay. And there's a picture of it in this article if you want to take a look at that. Goodness gracious. The next one we have here is off of RT.com. It says Swedish courts allow the flying of ISIS flag. The Swedish court has dismissed a case against Muslim men accused of inciting racial hatred for flying an Islamic State flag because it's not worth an expression of hate speech. That again. Swedish court has dismissed a case against Muslim man accused of inciting racial hatred for flying an Islamic State flag because it is not an expression of hate speech. I had to read that twice because I couldn't believe I saw it the first time. Okay, the now 23-year-old from Lahome in posted a photo of himself posing with the flag as his Facebook profile picture in December of 2015, but removed it when it was reported to police in March. The Syrian-born man was facing felony charges of inciting racial hatred, but prosecutor Gisela Jovals said she had made the decision to drop the charges after careful consideration back and forth, reports Holland's Postum. The waving of the Islamic State or ISIS flag considered hate speech because it's not an expression of disrespect towards any ethnic or minority group. For example, in the same way, the swastika could be considered a symbol of racial hatred. Instead, IS are against everyone except those who belong to IS. Incitement of racial hatred is defined as the public dissemination of statements that threaten or disparage a group of persons with allusion to race, color, national or ethnic origin, religious belief, or sexual orientation, she said. The man's defense attorney, Bjorn Nielsen, insisted his client is not a supporter of IS and argued that the flag has been a symbol of Islam for hundreds of years before IS laid their claim, according to GP. This is the first case in which the IS flag has been up for judicial review in Sweden, SVT, and so there was no precedent to help determine the outcome. Wow. The next one is off of regated.com. It says, we're in an information war. It's time to wake up. And I'm waiting for my little hamster to catch up to me here so I can read you the article. Bless its heart. It only has 3 legs, you know. All right, it says information warfare is the use and management of information and communications to pursue advantage over an opponent. Part 1 of Podesta email leaked October 7th. 6 subsequent batches leaked in the past week. Throughout these thousands of emails, there's emphasis on the corrupt and illicit misdeeds highlighted in the more juicier correspondences. These emails show that conspiracy theories has become fact. The mainstream media is the Clinton campaign's attack dog. In this email, we have Frank Islam, notable Huffington Post contributor, pledging, "I am committed to make sure she, Clinton, is elected as the next president of the United States." Huffington Post columnist Brett Badasky advises in another email how to counter Donald Trump's attacks on Huma Abedin and best deal with his volatile, brash nature. Is it in the job description of a journalist to collude with chairman of presidential campaign and counsel the best move forward? And press secretary explains here that Clinton camp had Politico's Maggie Haberman tee up stories for him. This is unacceptable. It's an affront to the dignity of every American. People have accepted media bias for too long. The mainstream media is not worth their weight in credibility. But the damning proof before us of Clinton campaign collusion with major media is another beast altogether. It provides their sole intent is to dupe American people and feed our nation propaganda. I wish it stopped there. The Clinton camp was aware that Saudi Arabia and Qatar were funding ISIS. However, that didn't stop the campaign from taking $10 million from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The Clinton campaign is not just guilty of treason for taking shady money from countries funding ISIS and their enemies, but also of illegally coordinating with the propagandistic super PAC, Correct the Record. There's a document here in this called the Updated Lay of the Land, and underneath it says the document above is accessible via the attachments tab of this WikiLeaks email. It shows irrefutable, irredeemable proof the Clinton camp is breaking laws. It's a war, folks. To further drill that point home, Jennifer Palmieri, director of communications for the Clinton camp, had final say with what New York Times' Mark Leibovich's article contained about Hillary Clinton. Initially, Mark asked, "I wanted options to use the following. Again, is it the job of journalists to seek permission before publishing public knowledge?" To his editor, maybe, but not to a communications director of a presidential campaign. "Pleasure doing business," concludes the email, a chilling reminder of their total worship of Hillary. Mainstream journalists have no standards or ethics. Absolute power absolutely corrupts. Finally, the cherry on top. We've all been quite content to demean government, drop civics in general, conspire to produce an unaware and compliment citizenry. They said it, not Donald Trump, not Vladimir Putin, but the Clinton camp. In plain words, their goal is to have as many citizens unaware and compliant with all of their corruption and unethical practices. That's what they're attempting now. With the mainstream media refusal to cover any aspect of the Podesta emails, they're trying to keep citizens in the dark and continue their charade. Their house of cards will eventually collapse, no doubt. It's just a matter of when and who they take down with them. Until then, though, they will continue to stir up controversies and misinformation about Donald Trump. The establishment is clinging to their power and will do anything to keep their things as they are. They know the only hope of reaching their goal is by bastardizing the mainstream media. As tensions boil between U.S. and Russia, it seems all CNN and MSNBC want to cover is Donald Trump and his ineptitude for the presidency. How many Americans know we are on the brink of all-out war? How many are aware that U.S. airstrikes intended for ISIS actually hit a Syrian army outpost, killing 62? Many everyday Americans know, but we don't have a 24/7 cable show to broadcast concerns. Many Americans only have media conglomerate propaganda machine fueling their daily news. The machine says, be offended, Russia bad, Beyonce good, Trump, Hitler. Invariably, when the biggest media conglomerates are all propaganda, the public and their intelligence will suffer. We're in an information war, and it seems no one realizes it or cares. The mainstream media must crumble, both for willingly misleading people and for colluding with a presidential campaign. If Clinton wins in November, the propaganda will continue and only strengthen over her 4 or 8 year administration. Donald Trump is the last and only vestige the people have against fighting and effectively ending this blatant propaganda from state-run media. The next one we have here is off of the Common Sense Show, and it says, DEFCON 3, an unprepared U.S. military. Do you have a place to hide? These DEFCON things the other day in one of my shows. You can go to that DEFCON website and pull up information. It tells you what the levels are. And I reported the other day where we're at DEFCON 3, but this is a little more information here. A little enlightening, I think, for some folks. It says the American military is posturing for war as best it can. Of course, I'm referencing the tremendous handicap that Obama and his left-wing subversives have imposed on America. America is supposed to lose, and our current president has done everything he can to ensure the outcome. In any other time in America, this president would have been impeached or been the victim of a military coup for what he has done. But then he has purged the entire leadership of the military. Even though we are operating under an extreme handicap, the following email reveals how our military is positioning its assets for the coming war. And here's the insert in this. It says, "Hi Dave, my son, former Marine and National Guard, just returned from town where he witnessed a westbound train at least 2 miles long loaded down with assortment of military vehicles. At the time he saw it, the train was at rest in Lordsburg, New Mexico, with a white security van traveling alongside and lighting it up. A list of what was on the train follows: weaponized strikers, generators, ambulance strikers, command strikers, armored personnel strikers, M109 paladins with barrels removed, armored weapon-mounted Humvees, IED-resistant vehicles, and M1078 light utility trucks or troop transports. My son did not take any videos or pics as he didn't want to deal with security attached to the train. Keeping you in prayers daily." And then it says, the article goes on, says, "I used to receive about 1 email a week similar to what was sent to me. Today, I am receiving an average of 5 emails on a daily basis. The United States is witnessing the mobilization for war. The military has been taken to DEFCON 3. On October the 15th, 2016, the American military was taken to DEFCON 3. What does that mean? Please see the chart below." And there is a chart here, and it gives the levels, 1 to 5, and 5 is your regular peacetime readiness, normal state of preparations. And about a week or so ago, we were at 4, which is heightened intelligent activities, enhanced security measures, infrequent state during Cold War, non-specific terror alerts. But we are now at DEFCON 3, and what that is military readiness at accelerated levels, Air Force on alert for mobilization 15-minute window, Yom Kippur War, Operation Paul Bunyan post 9/11 attacks, October 15, 2016 Syrian crisis. As well, and if we go to 2, I'll just finish them out here. If we are to go to 2, what that means is very high readiness, complete military ready to attack within 6 hours. And that's what we faced in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And DEFCON 1, maximum alert, nuclear war imminent. And that's unprecedented. We've never had that happen here before. As a blind man could say, biblical prophecy is being fulfilled in Syria, and war that takes America out of the picture before the last days. It's almost upon us. How will the United States perform in the upcoming war? If we go to a CIA mouthpiece Deagle, they tell us all we need to know. In the beginning of 2014, Deagle published a projected demographic shift of every nation on the planet. The projections are noteworthy, as one of the most prolific arms dealers and sellers of intelligent information on the planet. Deagle would be in a unique position from which to make projections with regard to coming world events, as well as being able to anticipate dramatic shifts in global power. Not surprisingly, Deagle has made such a projection, and the news is not good for the United States. Below is a list of projected changes for the United States during the time frame covering 2014 through 2025. United States of America projected changes from 2014 to 2025. And in 2013, population was 316 million. Gross domestic product, $17 trillion. GDP per capita, $52,838. Budget, $5.8 trillion. Military budget, $726 billion. Forecast for 2025, we go from the population of 360 million in 2013 down to 69 million in 2025. The gross national product for 2025 is 921 billion. Gross, let's say the GDP per capita is 13,328. The military budget is $8 billion. From in 2013, it was 726 billion. In 2025, it's 8 billion. Wow, that is staggering. Serious depopulation. This goes on and says, please note how the changes in U.S. population covering an 11-year period mirror what I wrote in the America 2050 article. The projected and dramatic downward shift in America's population are nearly identical when one compares the America 2050 documents and Deagle projections. There's another striking projection which could alarm every American. In 2013, the U.S. military budget was $726 billion. However, the projected 2025 projected budget is only $8 billion. This clearly points to the fact that the CIA, through Deagle, is projecting that the United States is going to be militarily conquered within the next 10 years. The mere $8 billion projected in 2025 military budget speaks to a domestic martial law type of occupation force. With this kind of budget, the U.S. would not even be able to engage in regional conflicts. The Deagle documentation, or the Deagle documents, clearly speak to who the winners and losers of the coming global conflict will be. The Deagle document, Russia, China, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and India maintain their respective populations or increase their populations by the year 2025. The United States and Britain undergo severe population reductions. In the past several years, and again in the past few days, I have detailed how Obama has purposely weakened American defenses. I have maintained for several years that Obama was born to communists, raised by communists, and will one day hand America over to the Chinese, Russian communists. That day has almost arrived, and it is all according to plan. Former KGB agent Yuri Bezmenov describes ideological subversion as a process that seeks to demoralize or degrade an entire nation to the point that despite the abundance of information available to the public, they have absolutely no way of discerning what is real. Despite the best efforts of the independent media, we still have a large block of Americans who think Hillary Clinton is wonderful because they are so dumbed down that they still watch CNN and Fox. If we allow her, Clinton is being put into place to finish the job that Obama has started. For all of those who know people who support Clinton, ask them one question. How can you raise your children to obey your parental rules, respect their teachers, be a kind person to those who are less fortunate, respect and fear God, and to love Jesus. How can you look your children in the face and vote for Hillary Clinton? Final thought. The Russian and Chinese governments have told their people to prepare for war. What has the Obama administration told you? Meanwhile, America, prepare to defend yourself. The war's almost here. Next article I have for you is off of Conservative Firing Line. Conservative media whores pimps to highest bidder. Aping leftist counterparts Beck bought and paid for. Whereas this investigative journalist with Joe Newby, her co-author, has already proven in an explosive new book, specifically Chapter 3, that Facebook and corporate media are ideological bed with Obama Incorporated and like-minded partners, so-called mainstream media in America is also bought and paid for by foreign interests alike, no doubt. Effectively, its beyond scary basis can be found within the videos presented, harrowing out brainwashing, and more, and leave it to Cheryl Atkinson to spill the sordid beans. A smattering of stalwarts are in tow. And there's several videos you can take a look at here in this. It says, more specifically, did you know that only a handful of corporations, 6 to be exact, control over 90% of the media? That means nearly everything we hear on the radio, read in the news, and see on television, including news. I'm talking about General Electric, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. But after learning about the additional fuels cast upon an already incendiary and manipulative media firewall, along comes proof of the CIA's footprints and fingerprints too. Guilty as charged. Alas, dedicated readers of this site may have intuited that this investigative journalist isn't beholden to anyone in any sense of the word. And aside from high fives extended to valued sources, those who drop this and that into these hands, the truth lands where it may, regardless of the blowback. It makes no difference on this end, and it means exposing those who are no longer on the patriotic side of the track. Well, all the better. Comeuppance, in fact, as opportunists and sellouts, they are even more worthy of this site's hammer than others who are known to be bent from the get-go. That being established, particularly since this election cycle, it has become painfully obvious that Glenn Beck is a typical fraudster, huckster. Simply put, he is bought and paid for by media shill. Not only that, he's lost his bearings, if not his mental capacity. Mind you, it could very well be that his demons, his addictions, are back in full force. Once an addict, always an addict. Either way, he can no longer be trusted. But this is not to say that Soros machine hasn't been gunning for him for years. The point being, that was then, and this is now. Now, aside from being incapable of behaving in a professional manner, a la his wild pendulum mood swings, he veered from publicly supporting the likes of Ted Cruz to throwing his weight behind hit woman Hillary Clinton, a Marxist and Islamist. Yes, he made his career at Fox railing against these two twin devils, Islamist and Marxism. Thus, his his volte-face is a 180-degree head twister. In this regard, the takeaway is very clear. When his star depended upon being on the so-called right side of the tracks, that's where he landed, implanted, chameleon-like. On the other hand, when the powers that be at Fox bid him adieu, and their reasoning hardly matters, people get fired left and right. His financial fortunes rose for a while. However, as is often the case, his financial condition just fell sharply. The lawsuit was filed in Texas on behalf of Mercury Radio Arts, which serves as Beck's production and operating company over the Blaze. Balafé, who served as CEO of the Blaze, fired back in a short, terse statement Monday night. And he said, I feel terrible for Glenn, and I hope he finds the help that he needs, Balfour said in a statement to lawnews.com when asked for his response to being sued. Balafé worked closely with Beck for more than a decade, building a conservative radio and television media empire. The two split in 2014 when Buffett went to start his own company, Red Seat Ventures. He brought with him several top Beck executives, which was also a point of contention in Beck's lawsuit. The Daily Beast has been reporting about Beck's financial troubles, claiming he is millions of dollars in the red. A source in their article called the lawsuit the last gasp of a dying empire. But instead of standing behind his purported conservative principles, but which catapulted him to fame to begin with, he jumped into bed with agents who worked toward silencing free speech and other protected rights in America. Thus, he too is complicit in effervescing the Constitution, which he held aloft while hawking his conservative bona fides shameless. In fact, his duplicitous behavior was on full display in a May 18, 2016 meeting with Facebook executives. In reality, this meeting was little more than a dog and pony show, as detailed in Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad. If you haven't heard, Zuckerberg invited leading conservatives to discuss the hotter than hot spiking of leftist Islamic-driven articles at the expense of conservatives by its trending topics section. Reportedly, Glenn Beck sucked up to Mark Zuckerberg during Wednesday's meeting at Facebook headquarters. Daily Caller editor-in-chief Tucker Carlson has gone further, saying the radio host acted like he wanted to be Zuckerberg's manservant. In a comment to Politico, Carson slammed Beck for his alleged brown-nosing of the Facebook CEO, suggesting that the conservative founder of The Blaze, a website beset by financial troubles, many or may be seeking to curry favor with Silicon Valley billionaires. I went to that meeting expecting Beck to cry, rend his garments while quoting James Madison, but that's not at all what happened. He began the most extended, assiduous suck-up I think I've ever seen a grown man commit. He acted like he was auditioning to be Mark Zuckerberg's manservant. It was awe-inspiring. Carlson went on to speculate about Beck's motivations. I don't know what his agenda is. It's either he's looking to put his tanking web properties up for sale, or he just can't help himself. There's a billionaire there, so he sniffs the throne. These are the most damning comments yet from Carlson, who previously told Fox and Friends that a radio host at the meeting had sucked up to Zuck. Although Carlson didn't name him, Beck was the only radio host present at Wednesday's get-together, so his comment left little doubt as to who he was referring to. On the same show, Carlson also highlighted he personally pushed Facebook on the issue of their staff's viewpoint diversity, an argument that Beck specifically called out in a lengthy article following the meeting. Beck made considerable effort following Wednesday's meeting to defend Facebook and praise Mark Zuckerberg. The radio host wrote that he was disturbed by the demands of his fellow conservatives at the meeting, who he accused of staging a Salem witch trial against the company. When Time asked him why he trusts Mark Zuckerberg, Beck said that the Facebook CEO looks a man in the eye the entire time. He elaborated further on his radio show. The most important thing, he makes eye contact with everyone. If you're talking, he's staring dead into your eyes. If he's talking to you, dead into your eyes. And it's a little discerning at times because he's not flamboyant. So he has very few moments he's speaking, and you can almost tell he's using all of his energy for the gears in his head. As he's listening to you, know he's making 1,000 judgments on what you're saying. He's really listening. Really impressive guy. In a comment to Politico, Carlson slammed Beck for his alleged brown-nosing of the Facebook CEO, suggesting that the conservative founder of The Blaze, a website beset by financial troubles, may be seeking to curry favor with Silicon Valley billionaires. But Beck's harlotry gets worse, if you dare to imagine. How about taking payouts from RICO, Clinton Foundation? Yes, that criminalized enterprise. Mind you, this is the piece of Try this again. Mind you, this is of piece with currying favor with the Zuckster, in the expectation that if Hill is elected, well, his financial fortunes will rise again. Indeed, typical whore-like behavior, positioning himself, selling out to the highest bidders. More specifically, get this, he was paid $109,000 to aid in voter suppression. I kid you not. Bottom line. So as Beck, the fraudster, rages, rails, and becomes increasingly unhinged against Trump, Cheeto face and all, suffice to state that accepting monies to suppress conservative votes has become all in a day's pay. How far down the leftist controlled rabbit hole have some so-called conservatives fallen? Rhetorical. And they've got some inserts here. There's a Clinton Foundation confidential October accountants payable invoice, which is kind of interesting if you want to take a look at some of that. Wow. Holy smoke. And there's several videos in that if you want to take a look at those. The next one we have is off of Regatta. It says, hey, baby boomers. So you say you want a revolution. And it says, this piece is not for hardcore party soldiers on either side of the divide. It's not for media elites to ponder. And it most certainly is not for any elite baby boomers. This is a call to action to destroy the elite American ruling class. Allow me to back up. I'm going to use a bit of demographic shorthand in this article for ease of reading. When I use the term baby boomer, I'm not referring to your average working middle class boomer who always just wanted to work hard, be a productive citizen, and raise nice kids, etc. I'm referring to the elite members of that generation when I say baby boomer. A quick demographic slice. They are older than 65 now, often Ivy League grads, somehow managed to morally justify transitioning from hippie to yuppie, and they absolutely refuse to retire. Anyone who has worked hard their entire lives does not have the energy at 70 to begin a new career. There are a lot of retired steelworkers, carpenters, doctors, etc., who will not in agreement there. Take from that what you will. Pew Research Center confirmed in a press release that millennials, a term that means whatever powerful figures wish it to mean, have surpassed baby boomers as the nation's largest living generation. This group of 75.4 million 18 to 34-year-olds was born and bred under various evolutions of baby boomer leadership. For those of us born in the early 80s, we remember watching the Office of Presidency smeared with tawdry details. A report issued in March of 1996 described in graphic, blunt detail that Bill Clinton penetrated a 19-year-old intern with a cigar, smoked the cigar, and pronounced how good it tasted. That was the formative moment for many young Americans in my age group. It was the end of our innocence and belief the president was different from us, perhaps even the best of us. Critics from both parties urged Clinton to resign, arguing that the damage to the office itself will be irreparable. The reasoning at the time, if we accept this behavior and the blatant cover-up and lying about this behavior from a sitting president, the bar will continue lowering for future nominees and presidents. Yes, of course, we all know other presidents behave terribly in private. I neither condone or condemn that. We make mistakes. We all have good and bad times, and I'm no saint. That wasn't the point for many people. The point was he got caught, behaved decadently and without self-control, then lied to the American public. If we accept that it's cool that sitting president bangs the fat chick with a cigar and then lies about it, and then drags the nation through every sordid detail to maintain power, who will we have to choose from in the future? Here's who: Trump or Hillary. Our 2016 candidate are the result of decades with baby boomer control. Boomers went from anti-societal hippies to corporate raiders, slashing tens of thousands of jobs solely to buy more crap. They spat on greatest generation and their values of hard work, love of God, family, country, and selflessness. Boomers embraced narcissism, decadence, and divorce. Their generation got older and enacted countless nanny state laws because suddenly they weren't into drugs anymore. Boomers simultaneously collect massive pensions while voting people into office who slashed any future opportunity for pensions. They enthusiastically supported gutting America's industry via NAFTA and globalization. Now their generation screams with shrill, smug condensation that diversity is our strength, while living in all-white gated communities, safe from the horrific effects that their global policies have had on the average blue-collar black family. The baby boomer elites are hypocrites. The boomers lecture struggling developing nations on clean energy and global warming while driving not one but multiple SUVs to homes where AC is always cranking. The boomers got affordable college, swiveled and enacted policies that skyrocketed the tuition costs, all while lecturing young people with, I paid my tuition, you kids are spoiled. And who could forget the piece de la resistance of boomers, the bailout of 2008? Boomers' greed drove them to higher and higher levels of excess, while their moral revitalism allowed them to justify it. Sprinkle in a dash of boomer virtue, signaling to show how caring they still are by forcing banks to lend people who couldn't afford it, and you had a recipe for disaster. But it's okay. Boomers gave themselves a nice, tasty bailout that we will eat for the next 100 years. I cannot stress enough that the regular working stiff baby boomers suffered catastrophically under many of these policies. I must reiterate that I use the term baby boomer to describe the elites. Hell, as they hit senility, the boomers apparently hit the time loop and think a Cold War is back on. So that's fun. I could go on and on. I strongly suspect anyone born after 1977 who is reading this experienced at least some flash of agreement. So here we are, the generation that inherited a nation ripe for peace and prosperity by their horrific parents, shat on it, raped it, pillaged it, and apparently now want to destroy it with nuclear war. Watching the media reaction to reports of Hillary's ill health was especially telling. 65-plus-year-old boomer reports literally smirking at the idea Hillary might have health problems. She's a 70-year-old woman who has led an inconceivably stressful life. I'd be shocked if she didn't have some sort of health problem. The media couldn't fathom that concept. Then it hit me. Boomers are truly unaware of their own mortality, a generational narcissism so deep that death itself cannot even stop them. We are a generation to whom cynicism came far too quickly. 10-year-old kids should not overhear news their president uses cigars for anything other than smoking, but we did. I submit to you now that all criticisms of Trump, greed, narcissism, hypocrisy, are all the hallmarks of his generation. His nomination is viewed with glee by millennials as the culmination of decades of boomers' cultural and social revolution. Trump is the candidate the baby boomers have created and nurtured and implicitly demanded through their consent and constant lowering of the bar. And so I say now, give the boomers what they have earned. Vote for Trump and let your representatives know precisely why you'll be voting for him. A truly revolutionary act is not supposed to feel safe. It should be fraught with risk and peril. Large change will not occur through safe acts. Chemotherapy is toxic. It's poison. It often causes more problems than it fixes, but it kills cancer. Trump is the chemotherapy our democracy needs. His symbolic power as a tool against tyranny of the boomers grows with each scandal, with every allegation. How do you justify voting for him to your daughter? Just say these words. Well, honey, a long time ago, the people in power said it was okay for a president, leader of the free world, to do perverted shit and then shit on the American public by lying about it. That moral revitalism created greater and greater despondency over the years, and it lowered the bar of acceptable behavior. So now we're giving these moral realists or try it again, relativists exactly what they demanded of us. Sometimes you cut your nose to spite your face, and sometimes you hire a surgeon to cut your nose to allow you to breathe better. I'm not sure which this will be, but we have to try. And if you ever bring a boy home who behaves even remotely like any of these current leaders, I'll make sure that in no time flat, he'll be the proud owner of a new pussy by which I can grab him. When I talk politics with people my age, we often default to what we can agree upon and not focus on our differences. We have grown tired, exhausted, even by this false dichotomy of left, right, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. Those are 20th century ideals that have little place left today. The system will not reform itself. The boomers were given chance after chance after chance to clean their own messes, yet everything is worse culturally than 25 years ago. Ask average Americans, Iraq, Brit, Japanese, Syrian, German, etc. citizens. I have traveled and lived all over the globe, and no millennial is particularly happy with the boomer elite. We are America. Our nation was founded by men who spat in the face of arguably the greatest empire in human history and won. We're the nation that sent the first man to the moon. We stormed the beaches of Normandy, while our Russian brothers demolished Germany in the East at staggering human cost. Now we hear those brothers are our enemies and Trump is too dangerous. We are Americans. Let's start acting like it again. Brazen revolutionary acts are both our heritage and our birthright. Voting for more of the same boots on our necks, no matter how safe you feel doing it, will just give us more of the same boots on our neck. This is our best opportunity to come together and utterly crush a generation that has left us with filthy, war-ridden debt, crushed world on the brink of nuclear war. Let's nuke the boomers before they nuke us. So there you have that article. It's off of zerohedge.com. And this one says, Scenes from the Apocalypse. Mass immigration ruins the streets of France. The Paris you know or remember from adverts or brochures no longer exist. While no part of Paris looks like the romantic clinches in Hollywood movies, some districts now resemble post-apocalyptic scenes of a dystopian thriller. This footage, taken with a hidden camera by anonymous Frenchmen in the Avenue de Flanders, 19th arrondissement near the Stalingrad metro station in Paris, as well as areas in close proximity, showed the devastating effects of uncontrolled illegal mass immigration of young African males into Europe. If it weren't for the somewhat working infrastructure, the scenes might as well have been the setting of movie shooting or a slum in Mogadishu. The streets are littered in garbage. The sidewalks are blocked with trash, junk, and mattresses. Thousands of African men claim the streets as their own. They sleep and live in tents like homeless people. If no portable toilets are in reach, open urination and defecation are commonplace. Tens of thousands of homeless illegal immigrants, undocumented or waiting for a decision of their asylum application, waste away trying to pass the time in the city. Although their prospects of being granted asylum as Africans are bleak, they're hoping for a decision that would grant them an apartment, welfare, and make France their new home. The conditions are absolutely devastating. The police have given up trying to control those areas. The remaining French people avoid the areas at all costs. Crime and rape is rampant. Just recently, mass brawls and riots made the news as fights broke out near the Stalingrad metro station. If current trends continue and the French become minority in their own capital in even more areas, things like this might spread to areas frequented by tourists, forever changing the last romantic part of Paris that match what most people have in mind when they think of the iconic city. And there's a video in this if you'd like to take a look at the devastation that's going on in Paris. The next article we have is off of foxnews.com, and it says Saddam Hussein kept torture chamber in basement of Iraqi mission in New York City. The mission of Iraq, which sits on wealthy Upper East Side block near Central Park, has a dark secret. Its basement was used as a jail equipped for torture under Saddam Hussein's regime, the Post has learned. When he rose to power in 1979, the despot had the terrifying detention room installed inside the five-story building at 14 East 79th Street, right across from billionaire former Mayor Michael Bloomberg's home, according to two Iraqi officials speaking on the condition of anonymity. Saddam's henchmen, known as uh, Mukhabarat agents, I guess that's how it's pronounced, frequently imprisoned local Iraqis in the basement for up to 15 days at a time, using them as leverage to get their relatives back in the homeland to surrender and cooperate with the tyrannical government, the officials said. It was a dark room. The doors were reinforced in a way that nobody could break in or out. You didn't need to soundproof it, one official said. The other official added, "You're not going to hear someone scream down there." The prison chamber was similar to detention rooms in Iraqi embassies around the world, including Eastern Europe and Arab countries, where evidence of torture was uncovered, the official said. And there's a link you can click on to get more from the New York Post on that article. And the next one is pretty much more of the same. It's I guess this would be the one that's probably going to lead you to. This is the New York Post article. It says Saddam Hussein had a secret torture chamber in New York City. It says the mission of Iraq, which sits on a wealthy Upper East Side block near Central Park, has a dark secret. Its basement was used as jail equipped for torture under Saddam Hussein's regime, the Post has learned. When he rose to power in 79, the despot had a terrifying detention room installed inside the five-story building at 14 East 79th Street, right across from billionaire former Mayor Michael Bloomberg's home, according to the two Iraqi officials speaking on the condition of anonymity. Saddam's henchmen, now it's jumping on me. Okay. Saddam's henchmen frequently imprison local Iraqis in the basement for up to 15 days at a time, using them as leverage to get their relatives back in the homeland to surrender and cooperate with the tyrannical government, the official said. And yeah, it goes on pretty much like the last one. Let's see, some Gestapo-like tactics employed involved the use of copper wire, rubber hoses, and wooden planks. They would also pull out prisoners' nails and beat them to a pulp, one official said. In many cases, they would kill Iraqis and ship them back to Baghdad in custom exempt packages. They just put the body in a diplomatic box and it can just be shipped. This is diplomatic. Nobody has the authority to examine it or open it, one official said, confirming that Saddam's secret police had committed such atrocities in countries outside the U.S. It says they do whatever the hell they need to do. They are the last people you ever want to meet during the Saddam era, one official said, referring to the acts of violence. But the evidence of such treatment was hauled away, the officials believe, when the federal investigation stormed the mission after Saddam's dramatic fall in 2003 during an American invasion of Iraq. U.S. government officials came in, they took hard drives, computers, and they went into vaults, they smashed them open. Officially, they were running Iraq because we didn't have a government. We got the mission back in less than a year, the second official explained, pointing out that the Mukhabarat was sent home for good. Almost 4 decades earlier, Saddam had turned the Mukhabarat from a national security agency into a group of savage spies. He sent several of his most trusted spooks to the mission, where they set up shop in 3 main rooms in the basement. They each carried a 9mm semi-automatic pistol, and they had access to several Kalashnikov rifles on the premises, the official said. The first room acted as their office. The second was a communications center where they used an encryption system to send messages back and forth to Baghdad. And the third was the detention facility that was secured by a giant metal door with heavy steel bars across it. To keep the operation strictly covert, the Mukhabarat blacked out a skylight in the roof of the 5-story townhouse so the U.S. Air Force and satellites couldn't peer in. They also kept a watchful eye on American spies conducting wiretap surveillance from a car across the street, the official said. And this goes on. This is the first of like 10 pages. So if you want to read more on that, you're welcome to do so at your leisure, but that gives you the basic gist. The next one that we have here is off of Gatestone Institute. And this one says, Soviet-Palestinian lie. The PLO was dreamt up by the KGB, which had a penchant for liberation organizations. Ion Mai Pasapa, former chief of the Foreign Intelligence Services of Romania. First of the KGB destroyed the official records of Arafat's birth in Cairo and replaced them with fictitious documents saying that he had been born in Jerusalem and was therefore a Palestinian by birth. That says the Islamic world was waiting petri dish in which we could nurture a virulent strain of American hatred grown from the bacteria of Marxist-Leninist thought. Islamic and anti-Semitism ran deep. We had only to keep repeating our themes that the United States and Israel were fascist imperial Zionist countries bankrolled by rich Jews. And let's see, it says as early as 1965, the USSR had formally proposed in the UN a resolution that would condemn Zionism as colonialism and racism. Although the Soviets did not succeed in their first attempt, the UN turned out to be an overwhelmingly grateful recipient of Soviet bigotry and propaganda. In November 1975, Resolution 3379 condemning Zionism as a form of racism and radical discrimination was finally passed. The recent discovery that Mohammed Abbas, president of the Palestinian Authority, was a KGB spy in Damascus in 1983 was discarded by many in the mainstream media as a historical curiosity, except that the news inconveniently came out that at the time that President Vladimir Putin was trying to organize new talks between Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Predictably, the Palestinian Authority immediately dismissed the news. Fatah officials Nabil Shahar denied that Abbas was ever a KGB operative and called the claim a smear campaign. The discovery, far from being historical curiosity, is an aspect of one of many pieces in the puzzle of the origins of 20th and 21st century Islamic terrorism. Those origins are almost always obfuscated and obscured in ill-concealed attempts at presenting a particular narrative about the causes of contemporary terrorism while decrying all and any evidence to the contrary as conspiracy theories. There is nothing conspiratorial about the latest revelation. It comes from a document in the Mitrokhin archives at the Churchill Archive Center at the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. Vastly, Mitrokhin, I guess is how it's pronounced, was a former senior officer of the Soviet Foreign Intelligence Service who was later demoted to KGB archivist. At immense risk to his own life, he spent 12 years diligently copying secret KGB files that would not otherwise have become available to the public. The KGB Foreign Intelligence Archives remain sealed from the public, despite the demise of the Soviet Union. When Mitrokhin defected from Russia in 1992, he brought the copy files with him to the UK. The declassified parts of the Mitrokhin archives were brought to the public eye in the writings of Cambridge professor Christopher Andrew, who co-wrote the Mitrokhin archive, published in 2 volumes, together with the Soviet defector. Mitrokhin's archives led, among other things, to the discovery of many KGB spies to the West and elsewhere. Unfortunately, the history of the full extent of the KGB's influence and disinformation operations is not clearly as well known as it should be, considering the immense influence that the KGB wielded on international affairs. The KGB conducted hostile operations against NATO as a whole, against democratic dissidents within the Soviet bloc, and set in motion subversive events in Latin America and the Middle East, which resonate to this day. The KGB, furthermore, was an extremely active player in the creation of so-called liberation movements in Latin America and the Middle East, movements that went on to engage in lethal terrorism, as documented in, among other places, the Mitrokhin Archive, as well as in the books and writings of Ion Mathia Pasia, the highest-ranking communist official to defect from the former Soviet bloc. Pasipa was chief of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Romania and a personal advisor to Romanian communist leader Nicolae Ceausescu before he defected to the United States in 1978. Pasipa worked with the CIA to bring down communism for more than 10 years. The agency described his cooperation as an important and unique contribution to the United States. In a 2004 interview, Front Page Magazine, Pasipa said, "The PLO was dreamt up by the KGB, which had a penchant for liberation organizations. There was the National Liberation Army of Bolivia, created by the KGB in 1964, with help from Ernesto Che Guevara. The KGB also created the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which carried out numerous bombing attacks. In 1964, the PLO Council, consisting of 422 Palestinian representatives handpicked by the KGB, approved the Palestinian National Charter, a document that had been drafted in Moscow. The Palestinian National Covenant of the Palestinian Constitution were also born in Moscow with the help of Ahmed Shawari, a KGB influence agent who became the first PLO chairman." In the Wall Street Journal, Pasipa explained how the KGB built up Arafat, or in current parlance, how they constructed a narrative for him. He was an Egyptian bourgeois turned into devoted Marxist by KGB foreign intelligence. The KGB had trained him at its Balishkina Special Operations School east of Moscow in the mid-1960s, decided to groom him as the future PLO leader. First, the KGB destroyed the official records of Arafat's birth in Cairo and replaced them with fictitious documents saying that he had been born in Jerusalem and was therefore a Palestinian by birth. As the late historian Robert S. Wistrith wrote in A Lethal Obsession, the Six-Day War unleashed a protracted intensive campaign on the part of the Soviet Union to delegitimize Israel and the movement for Jewish self-determination known as Zionism. This was done in order to rectify the damage to the Soviet Union's prestige after Israel defeated its Arab allies. After 1967, the USSR began to flood the world with constant flow of anti-Zionist propaganda. Only the Nazis, in their 12 years of power, had ever succeeded in producing such a sustained flow of fabricated labels as the instrument of their domestic foreign policy. For this, the USSR employed a host of Nazi trigger words to describe the Israeli defeat of the Arabs in 1967 aggression, several of which are still employed on Western left today when it comes to Israel, such as practitioners of genocide, racists, concentration camps, and Herbolk. Furthermore, the USSR engaged in an international smearing campaign in the Arab world. In 1972, the Soviet Union launched Operation SIG, and apparently that stands for Zionistic Gosudstrova, or Zionist governments. with the purpose of portraying the United States as an arrogant and haughty Jewish um, fiefdom financed by Jewish money and run by Jewish politicians, whose aim was subordinate in the entire Islamic world. Some 4,000 agents were sent from the Soviet bloc into the Islamic world, armed with thousands of copies of the old Tsarist Russian forgery, the Proptosis of the Elders of Zion, according to KGB chairman Yuri Andropov. The Islamic world was waiting petri dish in which we could nurture a virulent strain of American hatred grown from bacterium of Marxist-Leninist thought. Islamic anti-Semitism ran deep. We had only to keep repeating our themes that the United States and Israel were fascist imperial Zionist countries bankrolled by rich Jews. Islam was obsessed with preventing the infidels' occupation of its territory, and it would be highly receptive to our characterization of the U.S. Congress as a rapacious Zionist body aiming to turn the world into a Jewish I don't understand that word. Fiefdom, I guess it is. Fiefdom. As early as 1965, the USSR had formally proposed in the in the UN a resolution that would condemn Zionism as colonialism and racism. Although the Soviets did not succeed in their first attempt, the UN turned out to be an overwhelmingly grateful recipient of Soviet bigotry and propaganda. In November of 1975, Resolution 3379 condemning Zionism as a form of racism and radical discrimination was finally passed. This followed nearly a decade of diligent Soviet propaganda directed at Third World, depicting Israel as a Trojan horse for Western imperialism and racism. The campaign was designed to build support for Soviet foreign policy in Africa and the Middle East. Another tactic was constantly to draw visual and verbal comparisons in Soviet media between Israel and South Africa. This is the origin of canard of Israeli apartheid. Not only the Third World, but also Western left ate all this Soviet propaganda raw. The latter continues to disseminate large parts of it to this day. In fact, slandering someone, whoever they are, as racist became one of the left's primary weapons against those with whom it disagrees. Part of the Soviet tactics in isolating Israel was making the PLO look respectable, according to Pacipa. This task was left to Romanian leader Nicolae Ceausescu, who had achieved the unlikely propaganda feat of portraying the ruthless Romanian police state to the West as a moderate communist country. Nothing could have been farther from the truth. As was ultimately revealed in 1989, trial against Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife Alina, which ended with their executions. Pacipa wrote in Wall Street Journal in March of 1978, I secretly brought Arafat to Bucharest for final instructions on how to behave in Washington. You simply have to keep on pretending that you'll break with terrorism and that you'll recognize Israel over and over and over. CSU told him, Arafat, CSU was euphoric over the prospect that both Arafat and he might be able to snag a Nobel Peace Prize with their with their fake displays of the olive branch. CSU failed to get his Nobel Peace Prize, but in 1994, Arafat got his, all because he continued to play the role we had given him to perfection. He had transformed his terrorist PLO into government in exile, the Palestinian Authority, always pretending to call a halt to Palestinian terrorism while letting it continue unabated. 2 years after signing the Oslo Accords, the number of Israelis killed by Palestinian terrorists had risen by 73%. In his book, Red Horizons, Pacipa related what Arafat said at a meeting he had with him at the PLO headquarters in Beirut around the time that CSU was trying to make the PLO respectable. I am a revolutionary. I have dedicated my whole life to the Palestinian cause and the destruction of Israel. I will not change or compromise. I will not agree with anything that recognizes Israel as a state. Never. But I am always willing to make the West think that I want what Brother CSU wants me to do. The propaganda neatly paved the way for terrorism, Pacipa explained in National Review. The General Alexander Savgosky, who created Communist Romania's intelligence structure and then rose to head up all of Soviet Russia's foreign intelligence, often lectured me, in today's world, when nuclear arms have made military force obsolete, terrorism should become our main weapon. The Soviet general was not joking. In 1969 alone, there were 82 hijackings of planes worldwide. According to Pacipa, most of those hijackings were committed by PLO or affiliated groups, all supported by the KGB. In 1971, when Pacipa visited Shirovsky at his Lubwanka KGB headquarters office, the general boasted, "Airplane hijacking is my own invention." Al-Qaeda used airplane hijackings on September 11th when they used planes to blow up buildings. So where does Mohammed Abbas fit into all of this? In 1982, Mohammed Abbas studied in Moscow at the Institute of Oriental Studies of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR. In 1983, he went on to become KGB spy. There he wrote his thesis, published in Arabic as The Other Side, Secret Relations Between Nazism and the Leadership of the Zionist Movement. In it, he denied the existence of gas chambers in the concentration camps and questioned the number of Holocaust victims by calling 6 million Jews who had been killed a fantastic lie, while simultaneously blaming the Holocaust on the Jews themselves. His thesis supervisor was Yevgeny Primakov, who later went on to become foreign minister of Russia. Even after he finished his thesis, Abbas maintained close ties with the Soviet leadership, the military, and members of the security services. In January 1989, he was appointed co-chairman of the Palestinian Soviet and then Russian Palestinian Working Committee on the Middle East. When the current leader of the Palestinian Arabs used to be acolyte of the KGB, those machinations have claimed the lives of thousands of people in the Middle East alone. This cannot be discarded as historical curiosity, even if contemporary opinion makers would prefer to ignore it by viewing it as such. Although Pacipa and Mitrokhin sounded their warnings many years ago, few people bothered to listen to them. They should. So there is that article. Then, the last one that I have for you, this is going to be your feel good. I know everybody's been chomping at the bit for a feel good, so we're going to do a screen share with this. This is a little video that I think you'll enjoy, and we'll get this shared up here and get it big so you can see it and play it for you.
Brand that was like positive, just dude, be nice, like treat people better, and let's create something that really lives and breathes this message, and that's something called the Dude Be Nice Project.
Bobby's definitely the one that we have to do this for. You don't know Bobby. Bobby's awesome.
Well, I'm not gonna be rude and say he's like not that young, but he's not that young.
Coke, pizza, subs, and turned down for what? That's Bobby. I would describe him as, to me, he's a kid at heart. He was born with special needs.
So just tell me your name first.
Bobby Whitesell.
So how long have you been doing stuff on the Reading?
Pretty long time. Back in 1969, he was walking by the school and he decided to come in and see if they wanted any volunteers. And the next thing you know, he started coming up to school every day.
What do you do here?
helping out basketball, football, and cheerleaders and band.
He dedicates his whole life to Reading High, and it's like on his own will, not something that somebody's making him do. It's something that he wants to do.
He's always positive and cheering you on. Every time he sees me, he gives me a high five.
What's up, Bobby?
Bobby lives, eats, sleeps, bleeds Reading High. That's just what he does. That's who he is.
He was always physically okay, but in 1977, he fell down 33 holes, broke my back reflex, and then he became also physically disabled. But he created this world.
And you're our superstar.
Yeah. If you watch the news, it's like, wow, like the world kind of sucks, right? And we just wanted to be like, no, we're going to create incredible, good news stories and get people inspired and show them that this generation wants to be a part of positive things.
If you heard anything about Reading, Pennsylvania, we have a bad rep. We're known for like violence and crime. When people think of Reading, they don't think of really positive things that happen here. But like that. If you really come here and get to know us and get to know the kids here, it's not a bad city. It's not a bad community. This is going to be something we do to show that we are a positive community, that we do positive things.
That's what Bobby's spot. That's what Bobby's spot.
Well, we're going to have a dunk contest.
Bobby thinks he's just going to be a judge at the dunk contest, but little does he know this is all for him.
The plan is you're going to get Bobby to be a part of your dunk, and then Bobby is going to be the one that wins the dunk contest.
Our goal is to just make this the best day of his life and show him that he's really appreciated.
This school is known as the Castle on the Hill. Since Bobby's been here for the longest, Bobby's definitely thinking it.
Thanks, Bobby. I'll see you later at the dunk contest. Bobby thinks he's here to judge a dunk contest. He's like so excited. He's been sitting at the table for like 45 minutes, but Bobby doesn't know the last dunk. One of the kids, Lonnie, who was like an incredible basketball player, Bobby's gonna come out like alley-oop into it. The last minute, our custom Coke bottles that say "Share a Coke with Bobby" are in the house. We are super stoked.
Ladies and gentlemen, up first.
You want him? He wants you. He's choosing Bobby.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next contest, Bobby Walker. He's being assisted by Bobby Walker.
Hey, Bobby. You know what? It's really about you. Look at that. What do they have on their shirt? They're here for you. Bobby, 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 Bobby. Come for you, Jake. Can you believe it?
As I all know, this is a nice project for Bobby. We all believe that Bobby is the unsung hero of Reading. Bobby, on behalf of the whole Reading High, I want to share our appreciation. Thank you so much.
They told me that this school is known as the Castle on the Hill. Guess what? Today, you're the king of that castle. Bobby.
Okay, Bobby, we have some crisp for you.
Thanks, Bobby.
There are unmasked heroes that no one knows about. Anyone can be a hero just by the little things they do, like such as Bobby, who is just there for people. And I know there's many other people in the world like that who just need to be recognized every once in a while.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's give it up for good king of the castle, Bobby Walker.
Okay, there we have that. Gee whiz. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a phenomenal video right there. And I don't know if you caught it at the very end, but it said that Bobby is battling cancer now. And gave some information on getting in touch with him. You can send him an email there through their website. I mean, he fell down a 30-foot hole, broke his back in 3 places, and he still manages to get around with the help of his walker and volunteer at that school to help those kids in that school and do what he can to contribute back to his community. Never give up. I don't care what you're facing. Never give up. You must have enthusiasm for life. You wake up above ground every morning. Do whatever you can to contribute back. You're here to create. You can create good. You can create bad. You'll feel better if you create good. And with that, I'm going to close her down for today, and I hope that it's beautiful where you are. I hope you're able to get out and enjoy the weather. Take off your shoes, stick your feet down in the grass, ground yourself, soak up some earth energy, take a deep breath of fresh air. Be glad you woke up above ground today. Do something nice for somebody. And with that, we'll shut her down. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye.